Hey, come on in. Good to see you. Here, have a seat. I want to talk to you today about risk and how it's important to take some risks to live a big life. Nobody has lived a big life who didn't take some significant risks in their life. So let's talk about the different kinds of risks and what you might want to do in your future. So it's basically three risks, I'm going to say. The risk to your wealth, the risk to your heart, and the risk to your dignity. But you know what you're not going to risk? You're not going to risk your reputation. Because you may get a reputation as a risk taker. And that's awesome. Because when you think risk taker, you think swashbuckling, adventurous, manly man or a brave woman. So let's talk about getting that reputation, taking some risks, and making your life even more excellent than it is right now. So the risk to wealth. This is a big one. In my early life, I decided I wanted to have wealth. I came from a very middle class, middle of the middle family. My parents were from England and came over to Canada. So we didn't really have much. There was no one in my family who'd ever bought a stock before, invested in real estate or anything like that. My dad was with the same insurance company for 44 years and lived a solid life. Absolutely good for him, but he worked hard and worked for a long time. So when it comes to wealth, you need to do some investing. Maybe it's to start your own business. Maybe it's to buy some stocks in the stock market. Perhaps it's to buy an income property. There's all sorts of courses on that and books, and I recommend that you read them and start your path. So that's the beginning. The second one is the risk to your heart. Listen, we all have the one person that we like, or maybe there's a few of them in your life that you really care for, and you've got to make the move. You've got to approach, if you're a man especially. Ladies now, I know you approach as well. And for the more old-fashioned women out there, you need to be able to flirt and show some interest. So this brings risk with it too. And when I was young, I was always trying to get a little outside my league, and I got turned down a lot, but I always figured I only needed one, and it actually worked out pretty well for me, although it got some burnt edges along the way, and such is life. You know, in Texas, they have a certain bragging right. The oil men were the greatest risk takers of them all, or perhaps in North America, the biggest risk takers. And they had, their clubs, the men's clubs, where all the oil barons would go, and they would talk, and they would brag about their failures. And if you had a little failure, you were ridiculed. You wanted to have a big failure, and that gave you prestige. So failing both in your business and in your love life can bring some great stories with it and make you a more interesting person, and as I said, more swashbuckling. The third one is the risk to your dignity. Now, we can talk about two ways this might go, like in your workout programs. This is a fitness channel, so let's talk about that a little bit. When you're going for a new high with squat, or perhaps you're going to do a new high go for a new high in deadlift, there's a little bit of fear that runs through the body. You might fail. You might look ridiculous. For example, if you're trying to squat, you make sure you have a squatter, or at least a rack that you can safely, get out of the squat. But there is a risk that you're going to miss it and you're going to look foolish, perhaps, at the club you're at. Deadlifting, there'll be a time when you put some weight on the bar and you go to pull it and you can't get it off the ground. And there's going to be people around who are going to say, "Oh, look at that guy. Thinks he's so strong he can't even budge it." So that can happen. You're back and round and people might criticize you. And when you're going for a max lift, you probably are going to have a little degradation of form, and that's okay as long as it's not brutal and you've warmed up a lot along the way. So there's some risks in that. Bench press, you can get pinned by it, and again, hopefully you've got a spotter. So we're going to take some risks on the lifting side as well. And the other thing that I like to do is when I'm out walking around or I'm at the coffee shop or whatever, I try to be friendly. I like to talk to people. I like to say hello. Maybe it's just a little nod. People are, often guarded, and you'll find that sometimes they don't really take to your hellos, and that's fine. But sometimes they'll be so glad that someone has taken a moment to talk to them, or to say hello, or to just recognize them for being there when so many of us are looking away and looking down and looking at our phones and so forth. And I try to do this, and I do it regularly. And I'll tell you a funny story about this because, and here you go. Here's a story that comes from taking a risk. And I was out taking a walk one day, and when I go for walks, I'll often drive to a new neighborhood and go somewhere I haven't been before. It just makes it more interesting. This is about 2 years ago. And you might know the Kevin O'Leary, the big risk-taking personality that's been on Shark Tank and in Canada, Dragon's Den, and is on CNBC on a regular basis. And Kevin's a big personality. He's probably 65 now, bald, wears a $3,000 suit, big watches. He's got a huge watch collection. Anyway, he's quite the guy. So I'm walking down the street, and it's July, and I'm going to say it's July, and there was a fellow who was washing his car, and he was taking great care. And I could see him as I was walking along. You know, he was over there, and I was getting closer and closer. And it looked like it was a Mustang, a convertible. It was green. Now he had the top up and black top. Anyway, it was a sharp-looking car, and he was an older guy, probably 65. And I said, "Hey, nice car." And he looked at me and walked towards me and said, "Well," you know, he said it a little sheepishly, "It was something I got for myself. I retired a little while ago, and I wanted something, you know, sporty, and I bought this car." And I said, "Well, it looks great, man. I bet it really moves." And I said, "You know, this reminds me of a story, and it's about Kevin O'Leary, the Shark Tank guy. And when he turned 50, Kevin bought himself a Porsche. And he was really proud of it. He didn't tell anybody, didn't tell his wife or his kids. He just drove it home. And as he got home, he honks the car so the family will come out. Now, as I get to this point, you know, there's different voices in our head. And I've got a voice saying, "Do you really want to tell this story? It's a little risque." And I'm noticing this fellow I'm with, and I don't know him. It's the first time I've ever seen him. And he's a little bit balding as well, and I went, to hell with it. I'm going to finish it. So I said, so Kevin comes home, and he honks the horn, and he jumps out of the car, and the wife comes out, and he says, "Look, honey, look what I bought. Brand new Porsche." And she looks at it, and she looks him up and down, and she says, "Oh, great. Just what the world needs. Another bald asshole in a Porsche." So now I've just told this to someone I don't know at all, and he's a little bit bald, and now it's not a Porsche, it's a Mustang. And so we're chuckling, and he's a little bit guarded, I'm noticing. I say, "Hey, you know, that's not you. This is, you know, is a much more reasonable car." And anyway, we sort of finished. It was a little awkward to finish, and, you know, have a good day. And I'm walking down the street, and I'm laughing to myself. And I can just picture him going into the house and saying, hey, sweetheart, I got something to tell you. There was a strange man who just came by and told me this story. And I can see him, you know, at the dinner party 2 or 3 weeks later saying, "I got to tell you something. There was this strange man who walked along and blah, 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 told the story." And so the way I look at it is that I added to my own life because it was a funny story. There was a little tension there. It was something that brought out my storytelling abilities. And for him, and I mean, I have no idea, but I expect he's told that story at least a couple of times in his life. So I've added to his life. So there you go. Taking a very simple little risk can add so much to your life and the life of those around you. So take risks. I'm not talking about being reckless. Okay, we don't want to be reckless. I'm not talking about putting it all on a you know, a gambling game or on some, you know, one-armed bandit or anything like that. But what I'm saying is when things line up, you've got to go for it. And, you know, for me, I've been investing in stocks since 1984, full time. And I've had loads of crashes. I like to tell people I've made millions, I've lost millions, but I've kept millions. And that's the key, where you are at the end of time and how you can get through those tough times. So take some risks, have some fun, laugh at yourself, and live a big life. All right, it's great to see you. Please hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you in the next one.